Hello, Roftwood. It's me, Zombie GG with the Roftwood Coordination Center, proudly presenting you with another post-apocalyptic production I like to call an RCC Fireside Chat. This episode is the sixth part of my series with my personal all-time arch nemesis and RCC public enemy number one, Lord Moloch, strike leader for the infamous Ridleybank Resistance Front's Gore Corps necro-terrorist unit. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show.
That seems quite unlikely to me. I think that if he wanted to, I think he could get to it, but I think by that stage he decided the game was over and he couldn't be bothered putting in the work to get all that history back because he didn't think there was enough of an audience for it, and that pissed me off. And I ignored it at first because I thought that it had just kind of dropped off a cliff, and then one day last year I decided I'm going to go and have a look to see what is left of the RRF. So I had a look on GameStats. Oh, there's still a few people playing for the RRF here. I'm going to go and have a look and see how the old place is.
This is 2017?
2018, last
2018.
year. So I woke up, I had a look around, and I spotted a breathing RRFer who I naturally assumed one of the Gore Corps, but it was actually a constable who had been combat revived and was looking for the person who combat revived him so he could kill him before he window dived. And I spoke to him, and it turned out to be the current papa of the RRF, Funk McBogey.
Damn.
Yeah, and he basically said, we're doing our thing, we're on Discord now. So I was like, oh, fucking hell, Discord. I've been avoiding Discord for ages, but why not? Well, so basically what I was thinking was, is this something that I need to retire? In 2015, Murray J. Suskind came back. Because
He was the papa before you, right?
Yes. And he came back to do a 10-year anniversary celebration. My personal opinion is that the 10-year anniversary celebration should have been the retirement of the RRF, and it should have been added to historical groups on the wiki, and the team should have reformed as something else. That's my opinion. The players that still wanted to play should have reformed as a new group with the name the Ridleybank Resistance Front retired. Because I felt that the 10-year mark was the right place in time for them to say, okay, the game's so small now, the team's become so small, let's put this down in history as something great like it was, and let's make it something new. Let's make something new with the people that remain. And what happened was, when I went on Discord, I was having maybe there's a possibility that I might be able to get them to go along with something like that. But I want to see what the community is like now. And what happened was that I went in there and I found that the constables are still a thriving, active strike team who are still enjoying the game. As I mentioned earlier, I'm more focused on people's fun than I am on anything else. And I saw that they were still having fun with it. And as much as my ambition is not to hang around Ridleybank ruining the same fucking library for 5 years, they love keeping Ridleybank ruined. And my attitude to it then completely shifted to, I want to support these guys. So I struck with them a few times. And I really liked striking with them, and I liked the players in the team. And I really got a feel back for the way the Horde worked. So what I did was I jumped on Facebook, and I still had Johnny Bass added on Facebook. So I messaged him, and I messaged Yama LeVay, and I messaged Trump, and I messaged Cyanide, and then eventually we dragged in Pika Pika, who had never played the game before, to join in with us as well. And suddenly we had a strike team, and that was the rebirth of the Gore Corps.
Damn, 2018 rebirth of the Gore Corps.
Yep. It had ceased to be a thing about 3 years before, 2 years before maybe. And obviously with all the history dying with Baja.com and a lot of the connections dying too, a lot of the players faded out. But what happened was, when we started to show up regularly, other players like Cthulhu in Lingerie noticed, and Swing Your Pants noticed, and Comrade Spud noticed, and they all started to come back. It's like, oh, something's happening. We can play like the old days again now. And suddenly we had not just a strike team, but a solid strike team. When I came back, I was kind of just hoping to have enough people to keep Nichols Mall down in the state that it's in now.
Yeah, Malton's most haunted mall.
Exactly. I wanted to keep Nichols Mall and went down because obviously Battle of Barhopolis, that place is my bugbear. That's my place that I want destroyed. In the end, we wound up with a team where I thought, we can pretty much, in the state of this game now, probably wreck most places. Let's go and do it. And then we went to Roftwood, and then we killed them all.
Summer 2018. You really kind of showed, like, unleashed the fucking new school Gore Corps on us. You had, like, combined arms warfare. It was like you had zombies on the ground bashing our barricades and occupying our buildings. Then you had the like transmortal tactics of like these Gore Corp guys who were just so in sync with each other. Like you could tell that that shit was like experience. That wasn't like first time kind of deal like we were doing with the Roftwood Elite, trying to put new people together and trying to do these like strike things. You guys were like well-oiled machine. It was a really fun summer for the RCC. So yeah, you come back in 2018, and then you raid Roftwood in the summer. Do you remember that campaign?
I do. It's remembering it as a campaign. We weren't really doing campaigns at that stage. What had happened was I found that we had a good combination of experience and new players all at the same time. And when we started to do things like taking out Roftwood, people started to be drawn towards us and we became more and more of a team. And obviously, they were stepping into a team that had me, Johnny Bass, Cyanide, Tromp, guys who've been killing people on and off for like 13 years. So the new players would rise very quickly and get to know our regimented, disciplined, hyper-aggressive strike style. So it wasn't really a campaign so much as it was literally us just getting our feel back. And then once we had smashed up Roftwood enough and then went back through Stanbury to finish it, that was when I decided the Gore Corps is fully back. And I decided to take us up to Kiger Mall. We went up there and it was sort of the first taste I had of the fact that I still somehow had a reputation, which I wasn't expecting. I kind of knew that some people would remember me, but I didn't think there would be many. But what actually happened was we showed up there, and the second we showed up, one of the Molten Globetrotters came to me in-game and basically asked us, please leave, don't destroy the mall. Because they were using it as like their stocking up ground and their like their hunting ground to just like kill random survivors who showed up on the
death cultist group.
Yeah, and that went really well for them because while they were midway through asking, Psycho Killer shot him.
Nice. Fucking hilarious.
Psycho Killer is one of my like very old hands. He joined the team just before I did. So Psycho whacked that guy straight away. We had messages on our Discord asking us to not destroy their mall, and we destroyed their mall and moved on. But it was really weird for me because they were speaking to me directly, and it was a sense of like they had decided that my presence there meant that death had basically come to their suburb.
Yep.
And I just found that so peculiar that I have to bear in mind at that stage I'd been retired officially in terms of, at least as Papa, 9 years.
You didn't feel like you had the crown, but like other people recognized it.
Absolutely, because someone else was Papa by this stage, and it was almost a decade. I didn't think that anyone would. I knew that some people would still remember me, but it'd be old people like Benigno and that who've been around for a long time.
I recognized you're coming back. I started seeing you post on the wiki and shit, and then I got crushed by you in fucking that summertime period. I was like, yeah, that's Lord Moloch.
But this was something different, though, even from that, because you weren't even. I mean, you were getting an example of my threat, the threat of me and my team showing up. You were getting an example. When we went to Kiger, we hadn't even done anything when they were asking us to leave, because they knew what we were going to do. And it was actually a well-populated area, so we were like, Jesus fucking
Soldiers of
Christ.
Crossman, East Becktown Defenders, Kiger Mall Survivors.
Yeah, and I'm looking around going, there's like fucking 9 of us. Why are you so worried by us? And then we trashed the place. And like, oh, I see, it's because you're all really soft now. So we just went on a tour, went around, killed as many people as we could, and then we went back and, having attracted a few new members, got a few of the old hands back. We've never managed to get Lurker back. He retired just before I came back.
Do you know the Lurker 7?
The Lurker 7 was one of my boys back in the day.
No one has PK'd me more than the Lurker 7.
And I want him back so he can PK you some more. But he hasn't come back since I returned to the game. If I can get hold of him, I'll be sure to send him your way.
Yeah.
But we came through and suddenly we had like an extra 5 members. We had Vegas, we had Rex, and we were just fully ready, and we just hit you as hard as we could. And turned out that as hard as we could was pretty damn hard, and that was when the whole DGM thing blew up as well. But that was when I really felt this is not just a team. This is a team that's going to last now because we've got structure. And also I had deputies, so there was always a sense with Cthulhu in lingerie and with guys like Psycho Killer, Cyanide, Pika Pika, Johnny Base, that there will be someone who, if I can't make it on a day, they can do the job for me. So there's, once again, we have a line of succession in place.
Man, that's so cool. You guys just like trust each other on that level.
To give you an idea, right now while we've been doing this discussion, Cthulhu in lingerie has just trashed a building with the strike team because she took over while I was busy.
Probably dead.
It's as simple as that. She gets it sorted out for me when I'm not around. So yeah,
I'm alive. Yes.
Kind of. I'm kind of alive and dead and undead. But yes, I am here and I am a pain in your ass for the foreseeable future.
You're definitely my favorite archenemy. You're like a big time leader and you're an honorable leader, and you pay your respects on things like crushing Eastonwood out of love for what those guys did for you during the Battle of Barhopolis. And then, yeah, just between you and I, the DGM thing was a pretty big growing up thing for me. I don't know, I want to try to make the RCC like something like the same caliber of respect that the RRF has in the game, where you guys are just like clean cut, above board, and no respect for sketchy, stupid shit like the Dempsey Grove mercenaries kinda did. You said you did that investigation on one of Christie of the Dead's players in the DEM, and then you guys did that investigation on like one of our guys, and we had that trial, and then we concluded that I don't know, they just weren't being transparent enough, and then the evidence was kind of pretty against them. Zerging is...
I think the thing that most goes against them evidence-wise is that they all went inactive at the same time as well after they'd left you.
And then there was concrete evidence of like password sharing and stuff. Yeah. And it's just, the whole thing was just annoying, and it's just like, dudes, why can't you just play the game legit? Like, I don't know. So you kind of helped me level up the RCC as far as bringing it to a cleaner caliber and hopefully a more respectable one by just cleaning out that group, the DGM, and then helping me recognize what kind of environment do I want to foster. I don't want to foster Zergs. That's not fun for the game. It's not fun for the community.
And I think you've done well at it. You've definitely, let's just say you're making the right steps, put it that way. There's still the occasional little trip with things like the security policy there, but you're making the right steps to fix them, if you know what I mean. You're getting there.
Outgrowing the trench coat.
You've outgrown the trench coat, you just haven't quite burnt it yet.
Haven't quite burnt it yet. Okay, I kind of want to catch your version of the history of the RRF and the Gore Corps, like, I don't know, Papa's famous names and strike teams and stuff.
Okay. So I don't know the names of all the teams that have been in the RRF, but I can take you through a lot of the beginning stuff. So if you're looking at the history of the RRF, it's really the history of the Papas of the RRF. Because each one of those, up until more recently, have kind of defined the era. So
you're the longest running Papa, and you came after the Murray character?
I'm not the longest running now. I was the longest running time.
Okay, sorry, go on.
So, You start out with the man himself, Petroshko, who pretty much set in place the entire theme, the style, and everything else to do with the RRF. He was the one who, on the old desensitized forum that died before Resensitized was created, put out the call to zombies to come and defend what he deemed to be the homeland of zombiedom, Ridleybank.
Like the center of the city.
I don't know why he chose that place. Tactically speaking, it's a very bad place to pick because it's too close to too many malls and it has an NT in it. But he chose that place probably, because it was in the center, an easy place for everyone to reach. And it definitely worked, even though, as I say, tactically speaking, it's not the best call. But he had the charisma and the personality to draw a lot of people. And a lot of people showed up and answered that call, resulting in the most important zombie group in the history of the game, bar none, by a fucking mile. The dead are nowhere near as important as the Ridleybank Resistance Front. They had their moment in the sun and they're the biggest now, but a few people, including one of the leaders of Lu, have said, and I agree with this, that if the RRF had never existed, Urban Dead probably would have been shut down years ago. The RRF was sort of the big bad of the game for years.
Yeah, and pretty much the perfect arch enemy.
Yeah, it defined the game. There wasn't, and you could have mall tours, you could have a big bash, whatever. Those are events. The RRF was a group that was the size of an event. And
it never went away. Its legacy just kept growing and growing, and the roots just kept deepening and deepening.
Exactly, and that was down to Petroshko, who, as I say, he brought charisma and real personality to the table. He brought a sense of fun. So there's artwork of Petroshko. So he was the one who came up with the idea that the RRF were pantsless zombies. So they are zombies who are completely naked from the waist down. So you are being murdered by a bunch of zombies with their genitalia hanging out.
Yep.
That was his thing. He was always pictured with a crowbar because apparently he would stick that up your butt. That was one of his little stories. But he was also very good at recognizing his own weaknesses. And of that, he recruited some really important names who, because they came very early on, are almost as important as Papas. Two of them in particular. There's Grim S, who was the war master of the Horde, basically their tactician. He handled all of the tactical and logistical requirements of the Horde and kept things operational, while Petro was the figurehead, almost like the Pope of it, if you know what I mean. And then you've got Jorm, who was the leader of the Baja Brigade, which was the first RRF strike team. Quite infamous, very, very good at the time. I think that I found out a lot of their tactics later on, and for all that they were presented as this incredibly tactically diverse intellectual strike team, there was nothing there that particularly wowed me, but they were definitely form setters for the RRF. So obviously Petro formed the team up, and they had big events like the first, I believe the second as well, Siege of Kaiger Mall came under Petroshko. Defeats, obviously, well known there. But the team just became huge to the point at which they had to, even beyond having strike teams, they had to separate the main horde into groups called Group 1 and 2 because there were just too many zombies to have in one place. And then what happened was, over time, he faded out. He ceased to be the leader, and then a schism kind of happened. Now, I don't know how much you know about the early history of Urban Dead, but the reality is that the early history of Urban Dead is like a case example of how to design a game really fucking badly to fuck over.
I had no idea. I can imagine that it had its bugs. Every game kind of has its bugs.
It didn't have bugs. It had bad game design choices. There's very few bugs you can get into a game like this. There's very little that can break aside from the RNG. The problem was that you had things like revives were 1 AP per revive.
Instead of the 10 AP that it is these days?
Someone could conceivably revive 50 people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So what would happen then is that became the main weapon, because the combat revive was a one-shot guaranteed kill.
Holy crap. Yeah, 100% chance to get rid of the zombie in front of you.
Exactly, and that resulted in a lot of players after a short period starting to leave the game. And Jorm, the boss of the Baja Brigade, was actually a coder. So he coded a new game called Nexus War, which was based very heavily off of Urban Dead.
Was that the Angels and Demons game?
Yeah, that was.
I played that for a bit. The tire iron
yeah.
was like such a sweet melee weapon for my new bass in that game.
Yeah, so they split off, and a bunch of those players, including the entire Baja Brigade, Jorm, Baudelaire, all of those sort of like iconic RRF players all left. Troshko lost interest in the game because it was so unbalanced. He left. There was actually a game-wide strike by zombie players where they all gathered in one place and were just like, we ain't fucking doing anything, you need to fix this.
Wow.
And that's when Kevan started to change things, but it had come too late. A lot of players just completely left. So the RRF drifted into a kind of flux as like the defining zombie game, as the defining zombie group in a game that is completely and utterly weighted against zombies. So Petroshko left and put Sonny Corleone in charge. Now, Sonny's quite famous, he's very abrasive, but something that needs to be borne in mind is that the person who was put in charge of this massive group of individuals was a high school kid.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was running the RRF. He also was the one who created and instigated and led the Big Bash, the first Big Bash.
Sony was?
Yeah, Sonny was. Yeah, he was very active in the metagame. He ran all that. He did, technically speaking, a fantastic job, but he went missing at a pivotal moment, just as the Horde got entrenched in the Battle of Blackmore.
Oh man, lost his nerve, huh?
It wasn't so much that he lost his nerve, it's that the pressure got to him. He didn't chicken out or anything, it's just that this sort of stuff, if you're involved in this all the time and you've got hundreds of people expecting you to lead them, it can crack you. But he vanished shortly after Gulina came to the fore and started shooting people inside Blackmore as a way to deal with the siege. Now, because do you know much about the Battle of Blackmore?
Was that the Blackmore Bastard Brigade event?
Yeah.
Yes, I got pulled into that, but
yeah.
I didn't really do a whole lot.
So it's predates, but I know a fair bit about it. It lasted for a long time, and that was when Gulina came to the fore, because she was the one who, when she was getting combat revived, because it was a major thing, she started shooting people. And Sonny was around as Papa long enough to sign off on the idea of the Gore Corps, basically out of desperation, because they needed something, because they were losing badly. The reality is the RRF really actually lost the Battle of Blackmore itself. What happened was Shack News came in, and for the first time ever they had an organised mega horde from outside of the game who'd come from a separate web forum, who came in and ruined Blackmore with the RRF, and then went on a tear right the way across the game and trashed everything. But that was basically Sonny's breaking point as Papa, and it was where Gulina came in. It was also where Murray J. Suskind started to come through as well, because he was a newbie during the Battle of Blackmore. After Sonny, you have Petruchio, who is kind of a reformer as Papas go, because obviously after all the shit that had gone on there, we've eventually won the Battle of Blackmore because Shack News came in and helped. So someone needed to reform the Horde, and they had to deal with the elephant in the room, which was the Gore Corps. And Sonny had signed off on the Gore Corps being created and running, but then he'd left, so he didn't really have to deal with the fallout from it. Petruchio was the one who had to deal with the fallout from it. And his attitude to death cult work, necro-terrorism, whatever you want to call it, was, it's fine by me. And he just let people play as they wanted to, and he himself would very frequently do stuff while revived.
Like transmortal tactics, dude.
He would. He would do that.
A more complete fighter.
Yeah, so but it was verboten outside of the Gore Corps within the RRF, technically speaking, at that time, but he would still do it. And some guys came back from the old days and started poking fun at him about that. members of the Baja Brigade. And what happened was the entire Baja Brigade, led by Jorm, came back from Nexus War to Urban Dead and started trying to tell the RRF how to run things, even though they'd left months before. And this led to an enormous fight, with them starting arguments with Gulina and members of her team. Murray J. Suskind, who was not Papa at the time, he was still a relative newbie but was friends with Gulina. He got involved and at one stage had actually opened up another forum specifically for a separate new group to be formed in the wake of the RRF breaking up, because that was what he was expecting to happen. All provoked by the Baja Brigade, who were eventually told by Patricio very politely, fuck off and do your own thing. So Jorm did exactly that. He went off and formed the Militant Order of Baja. Patricio...
Wow, that's how the MOB started, is Jorm's breakaway group from the RRF?
Yeah, that was formed from the old Baja Brigade. After that, Patricio was around a bit more, but then he vanished right as we were on, I say we, I wasn't in the team at the time, as Excursion 2 was running. And he vanished shortly before the RRF hit Santlerville. So, once again, same as Sonny had vanished right as the Battle of Blackmore had started up, Patricio vanished right before the Battle of Santlerville started. So, again, Murray wound up pressed forward just because he was the most active guy and the most willing to take control. He wound up in charge of the Horde just as they were walking into one of their biggest defeats in history. And he had to kind of manage that. He tried everything to try and win the battle, but it didn't work out for him. During that time, Gulina was becoming more and more prominent and the Gore Corps was becoming bigger, so there were feuds within the RRF over that. There was still Baja fundamentalists, as we called them, within the RRF who were basically being told, just fuck off and join the mob, stay out of our shit. There was a lot of bitterness when the Baja Brigade came back, because they basically came back and tried to tell the people who had been keeping the RRF going how to run it when they fucked off to do their own thing 6 months before.
Yeah, they abandoned the game and then they come back and thinking that they can just pick up where they left off.
Exactly.
This concludes part 6 of my most epic discussion with the legendary Lord Moloch, strike leader for the infamous Ridleybank Resistance Front's Gore Corps necro-terrorist unit. Stay tuned for part 6 coming soon. This RCC Fireside Chat is a post-apocalyptic production proudly presented to you by the Roftwood Coordination Center. I'm Zombie GG, and as always, Roftwood, the pleasure's been mine.